Take 2, 1, 8.
On KBLA, James Farr's on the mic, lifting up the people, keeping hope in sight. With Altadena spirit, he fights the good fight, speaking truth to power, shining the light. Flames try to break us, but we're standing tall. Lost our homes, but we ain't lost at all. Through the smoke and the ashes, we see the sun. Altadena's fight has just begun.
Just begun.
We'll rise again, we'll build it strong. Through the struggle, yes, we belong. Hand in hand, through dust and pain, Altadena's heart remains.
Live from Leimert Park, KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to The Conversation Live, Altadena Rising. I'm your host, James Farr. This is the show of record, and we are chronicling for the nation the January 2025 Altadena Eaton Canyon fire, which devastated a black community. Before we get started with today's program, I really want to just ground us, and I really appreciate you allowing me into your cars, into your homes, into your living rooms, your kitchens. You might be out this weekend enjoying some activities on your way to things with your kids. I really appreciate you allowing us into your space. I want to invite you to follow us on social media at KBLA Talk 1580 across all your social platforms. You can follow me at James Farr Live. I'm on all the platforms. Our phone lines are going to be open today, 800-920-1580. That's 800-920-1580. And then if you haven't, or you're just catching up with us, maybe you've heard one or two episodes and you want to go back and listen to our previous episodes, our podcast is available wherever you get your podcast. You can also find it over at the KBLA 1580 YouTube page. We got a full program today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we are going to be doing today. In the bottom half of our hour, Los Angeles County Assessor Jeffrey Prang is going to be in the seat. But at the top of the hour, this is like a county day, Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman will be in the seat. And you know what's interesting is both these two elected officials actually govern offices that are like the largest county offices in the nation. So there's a great deal of responsibility, but then there's also a history of systemic issues and how black folks have been impacted either by legislation and policy, over prosecution. But, you know, we'll get to a little bit more about that. Let me tell you some facts, and it's all facts, and there's no cap in here. If you were with us on Wednesday afternoon at the KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall in Pasadena, Altadena at the Robinson Park Recreation Center, it was 100 days and counting. I appreciate everyone And when I say everyone, I mean there was standing room only. There's no vanity. There's no ego in the fact that folks showed up. I believe it was exactly, as a community member shared with me, it was exactly what our community needed. People needed to be together. People needed to know that folks are still listening. People needed to hear information. So I appreciate my colleagues, Queen of Los Angeles Talk Radio, Sister Dominique DePrima, and my brother, Dr. Nee Corte, for the masterful moderation of that afternoon, and then our panelists. Boy, I'll talk to you a little bit more later in the hour about some of our panelists. I thank them for showing up vulnerable. I thank them for showing up with passion, and big shout out to the entire KBLA Talk 1580 team and our Chief Visionary Officer, Mr. Tavis Smiley, for having the vision that as long as this Black Talk radio station is in existence, that we will not let these stories go untold. So as I said earlier, this is the show of record, and we are chronicling for the nation. But a lot was discussed in that town hall. Questions came about in terms of, where are the resources that have been raised and why aren't they being kind of disseminated to the people who need them most. We heard from Brother Martin Gordon, who said, these are my words, not him, but where's the money, right? How does that money get to him? We heard from a builder, Joel Bryant, who talked about how tariffs and different things are going to impact. And then our sister Dr. Ishel Williams, who you heard on this program before. You also heard Martin Gordon on this program before. She really talked about grounding in the mental health and then the process, what this is going to look like from a relief, a recovery, a rebuilding, a reunion space. And then Brandon Lamar, the president of the Pasadena NAACP branch, as always brought the fire. Brandon said something very interesting. He said, disasters don't discriminate, but recovery does. Let me say that again. Disasters don't discriminate, but recovery does. And then Sister Ash Level with Altadena Rising, which is a collective of organization and organizers in the community who are working to make sure that people need, have the resources that they need. And, it's one thing that I saw on that panel this past Wednesday. It was really an intergenerational conversation. To the north of me, you had certainly Martin Gordon, who you're familiar with on our program. You had Sister Veronica Jones, who is the president of the Altadena Historical Society. And then, anchoring that was Sister Ash Level and Brandon Lamar. And, those two young people, and I guess I can call them young people because I'm sitting right in the middle. Martin's old enough to be my father. I'm old enough to be their father, right? So I'm sitting right in that middle of that intergenerational gap. They give me hope. They are, they embody what the future will look like when we come forward. So I'm elated to be in space and in community with them and all of the panelists that participated. And then obviously, this event happened in part because of our sponsorship from Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers, Crystal Nix Hines, a partner over there, and Jeffrey Bozell. Thank you for sharing some of that legal perspective that folks needed to know. My takeaway, from that town hall is, and it brings about a burning question. Black Altadena has been burned before. Will the district attorney and the tax assessor burn them again? When we come forward, we're going to welcome in District Attorney Nathan Hochman into the seat. We got a lot to talk about. Only on KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power. Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
And welcome forward. You're listening to The Conversation Live. Altadena Rising, I'm your host, James Farr. Our Conversation Live, Altadena Rising, is sponsored in part by Quinn Emanuel, trial lawyers, only here on KBLA, Talk 1580. So, we're here now, and I'm happy that we've had the opportunity to extend an invitation to our next guest. He is the Los Angeles County District Attorney. He was elected in 2024 to the District Attorney's office, and I think, some folks may agree, disagree, but he overwhelmingly won the seat. Wasn't necessarily my first choice, but District Attorney Hochman, welcome to the Conversation Live. Altadena Rising, how are you this morning?
I'm very well, and hopefully after we talk today and over the future, I'll be your first choice.
You'll be my first choice. So does that mean you're running again? I mean, is that an early announcement?
Way too early to make an announcement.
You're. I mean, the fire happened 100 days ago, and you're 4 months into about 120 days.
That's about right.
Yeah, into your because you were sworn in December, first Tuesday in December,
Yep.
Right? What's that like? I mean, you ran, and I want to talk a little bit about your campaign and kind of how you come into the space in the hard middle and some of the things. But what is it like being the district attorney?
It's actually a fantastic job, a fascinating job, a difficult job, an exhausting job, because you're in charge of 2,100 employees. About 750 of them are prosecutors. You're prosecuting in every single one of the cities and unincorporated areas in L.A. County. That's 88 cities, 125 unincorporated areas. Mm-hmm. There's 10.4 million people in this county. If it was a state in the United States, it'd be the 8th largest state. And it's every range of crime you can possibly imagine. I mean, we do all the juvenile crime, we do most of the misdemeanor crime, and all the felony crime. Mm-hmm. And so I inherit, 750 prosecutors, and you're always kind of, interested on who you're inheriting. Turns out I got lucky. I got some of the most talented, experienced prosecutors probably in the nation who are doing crimes, everything from the most violent crimes, property crimes, sex crimes, every single day.
I mean, it's the largest prosecutorial office in the nation. I mean, and sometimes it's just kind of hard to imagine, is there any other, county that kind of comes closer? That maybe New York, or it's not Cook County.
Well, since New York is divided into its 5 boroughs, each borough has its own district attorney. Mm-hmm. So short of the California Department of Justice for the whole state has about 4,000 attorneys. And the U.S. Department of Justice obviously is bigger than that. But as far as a county, biggest one in the United States.
Okay, let's talk about the fires. What we're not doing is like comparing the tragedies, right? Palisades versus Altadena, but there is a difference, and I don't know if you would agree or disagree on that. I know your sister lost her home, and
That's right.
You know people who have been personally impacted, right?
Well, and in the district attorney's office, we had people lose their house in the Palisades fire and also in the Eaton fire area too. Mm-hmm. And so, and obviously be dislocated. And in the DA's office, we've done our best to rally around those people. We basically said, look, tell us what you need, whether it was temporary stuff, whether it's been more permanent stuff. We've been there with each one of those employees to get them back on their feet quickly. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'll tell you an interesting story. We had a guy who had a house in Altadena, his family's house. And luckily or unluckily, it was a house that the fire department poured a tremendous amount of water into and actually saved the house. Problem was it destroyed everything inside the house. This particular prosecutor, his name was Nick Kang, he was in trial on a murder case. He literally had the only suit he was wearing that day as his only suit. He actually finished the trial wearing one suit, then did another murder trial. Wow. I mean, that's the kind of prosecutors I have in my office that are dedicated to getting the job done, doing justice for the people out there, even at their own personal sacrifice.
Let's talk about for the people, right? Because, I mean, you were elected to serve the people.
Absolutely.
I didn't necessarily hear the connection to community. And, you know, I mean, let's call it straight it is. That your office has a history of over-prosecution. Some would even say targeting black folks, brown folks, doling out or pushing for lengthy, you know, prison and incarceration. You know, you've given a lot of attention to brothers, you know, the Menendez brothers, but I want to talk about the brothers in the community, right? Like, what protections are you providing for them? You know, I don't think there's been a calamity, a disaster on this level that has gutted an African-American community. So when we think about your hard middle, when we think about you being tough on crime and throwing the book at the looters, right, that I think you said a week after the fire, does that also include a criminal investigation into Southern California Edison? 18 people died.
Oh, it'll include investigation into any entity or any individual that's responsible for intentionally setting a fire. You know, and I say it just like that because that's
intentional. I mean, because we've seen
because that's the crime.
Stuff, right?
See, the thing is that I'm not the city attorney's office and I'm not the attorney general. I can't bring civil cases. You know, all these.
I'm talking about criminal.
Oh,
cases.
And that's what I'm talking about. But criminal cases for arson require an intentional or a highly reckless setting of a fire. If it turns out, if we hit, it's arson. If we hit that standard, I will not hold back in going after anybody who hits that standard.
Right, but let me back up, because what we've seen on video, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, from the gas station looking up into the hillside, the same burn scar I see every morning on those power lines in my community, right? That seems to be the causation, right? I don't think anyone went up there with a lighter and lit the tower, right? It had to be some sort of malfunction. So we're looking at gross negligence, right? And negligence. I guess the question is, are you looking to charge and criminally charge Southern California Edison? And hypothetically, what would that look like?
So I'm looking to criminally charge anybody responsible for any of these fires if they intentionally or recklessly set them, which is the standard for arson. And whether it's an entity, it could be Southern California Edison as an entity, as an example, or any particular person. And we've got a whole bunch of fires across LA County that we're looking into. One of the things we do is that we're waiting for the final analysis to be done. The ATF brought some of its most trained people from around the nation to do a fire origin analysis. We're waiting to get that analysis. I'm also working with the U.S. Attorney's Office because they have certain federal laws that can be brought. As you're aware, up in Northern California, when there was one of the it's PG&E and the San Bruno station, they actually brought criminal cases, federal criminal cases, against the I think it was either PG&E at that time. I don't think it was. Yeah,
it was PG&E. I mean, I understand. So there's that legal threshold.
Well, and it gives us a template, though. Yeah. I mean, in other words, it's not like you can't bring a criminal case for arson against an entity just because it's an entity. And if it turns out that they meet the elements of the crime, we're not going to hesitate to go after them.
I mean, I just believe in community. This is what's happening in the barbershop. This is what's happening in churches. And, you know, KBLA just hosted a town hall meeting. Nearly 300 people showed up, right? No electeds came. I don't know if they were necessarily invited, but it was community, right? And, again, we're going back to, I think black folks showed up for you at the polls.
They did, and quite candidly, if I had been invited to that community event, I don't think I was, I would have shown up. I showed up recently when Danny Bakewell, excuse me,
at the Hilton, yeah.
Senior and I think Junior was there too.
Yes.
He had something at the Hilton in Pasadena.
Mm-hmm.
I showed up for that as well as a bunch of other elected leaders and gave them the message. I gave them the message as to what the DA's office is going to do. And again, we're criminal prosecutors. We work with all the other agencies that are delivering the relief, but our focus is to make sure that relief goes to people who truly need it. And to the extent that there are people getting in the way of that, and I gave an example. You know, if you're in Altadena and you went ahead and you went to FEMA.gov because you're entitled to not only $770 but $42,000 or even more, and all of a sudden you typed your name and you typed your address and it said your application has been received. And you're going like, what are you talking about? I didn't file an application yet. Turns out a criminal actually did. They beat you to the punch. We're now going after those criminals. We're then going back in the system to clear it so that the true victims can put their righteous name and information in and get their own money. But we have to actually go after the criminals who have gotten in the way and slow down the whole process, because now that victim is not going to get their money as fast as they could, because we got to go ahead and clear that system, make sure that the true applicant now is going to get the money, and to the extent money's gone out to somebody who ripped it off, we got to go after that thief.
Let's go to Michael. We have Michael on the call on the line. Michael is called in. Michael, what you got for us this morning?
Yeah, I hope I'll be brief, but I had a question for Nathan, and my question is that during the fires, about prosecuting looters, people who were trying to loot homes during the fires, and you did a lot of press and went on a lot of media about it. But when it came to the price gouging, even though you talked about it, you actually offered leniency to those who were trying to price gouge. And with the looters, you were saying that you were going to seek the full penalty under the law. And when I looked on your website to see if anyone was charged with price gouging, I don't see a release from the DA's office saying that anyone was actually charged with price gouging, even though we know that there was price gouging happening during the fires. And so my question is A, have you investigated or charged anyone with price gouging during the fires? And B, why did you offer leniency to people who were price gouging, landowners, property owners, business owners who were price gouging, but not offer leniency to those who are looting? Because to me, it seems like
well, that's a whole mouthful, brother Michael. Let's let the district attorney Hochman answer that. So price gouging was one thing. The exorbitant rents that we saw, I think, was another thing I heard Michael say, and you may have caught the third one. But let's go with those first two.
Sure. I've offered no leniency to price gougers. Now, it turns out that on the DA's office, I don't do most of the investigation ourselves. We are actually rely on other entities, law enforcement, to bring us the cases. We have actually got a whole number of investigations that are pending. Because again, at the end of the day, I got to prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt to 12 unanimous jurors. And when and if we can bring those cases, there will be no leniency offered in a case, unless, of course, there's extenuating circumstances. Because my approach, this hard middle approach that you referenced, is actually a holistic approach. It says that I'm not going to come up with a blanket policy that no matter what the reasons are.
How is that? I'm sorry.
How is that?
How is that a holistic approach? And we just have a couple of minutes.
Sure.
But a holistic approach, holistic is in gang enhancements, death penalty. I mean that's a different conversation. But I guess what we're trying to get at, and as we get short on this time, I appreciate you coming here. I got to have you back because I think there's a longer conversation to have. Is really, that burning question is like, black folks don't trust you, right? They don't trust your office. Let me say that. They don't know you, right? So it's not fair. It's not a personal assessment. Your office and the office you represent. Why should they trust you now?
Because when I say a holistic approach, let me tell you exactly what I mean. And I come from the sensibility of not just being a prosecutor in my life. In fact, I was a prosecutor for about 10 years. I was a defense attorney for 25. I'm the first DA who's ever had defense experience, and it's been most of my career in the history of the DA's office. So when you're a defense attorney, you don't take things for granted. You don't assume the police are always telling the truth. You analyze the evidence to see if it's beyond a reasonable doubt. You see if it's legally admissible, and if it's not, you attack it. And I bring that sensibility now into this office. I'm not only the first prosecutor, first person who's been a prosecutor, I'm the first person who's ever prosecuted police officers. I did it in the 1990s when we did Operation Big Spender. I was part of a team that actually went after elite deputy sheriffs who were stealing drugs.
We're going to hold it there, District Attorney. Okay. I'm so sorry. I got to bring us forward for a break.
Please.
You need to come on the Black Lives Matter show. When we come forward, Los Angeles Assessor Jeffrey Prang is in the seat. You listen to Conversation Live, Altadena Rising, unapologetically progressive.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
Hey!
Let me tell you how it will be. There's one for you and 19 for me. Cause I'm the tax man. Yes, I'm the tax man. That man is rough. Now dig this. Should 5% appear too small? Just be
KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the conversation live, Altadena Rising. I am your host, James Farr, and we are sponsored in part by Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. Whew. Well, that was an interesting conversation with the district attorney, and I think it only gets more interesting after this. And we're going to power straight through it. That I've learned, and we make mistakes sometimes, so we correct those mistakes, right? There is no such thing as a tax assessor. I do have the privilege of having the Los Angeles County assessor, Jeffrey Prang, who has been in office, almost 10 years now, right? And prior to that, you were a city council member in the city of West Hollywood and a former mayor of West Hollywood. That's right. And you live right here in the...
right here in the neighborhood.
Right in the neighborhood. So short drive over for you. Assessor Prang, Jeffrey Prang, thank you for joining us this morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here.
This must be an interesting time, right? Because I don't. Have you talked with colleagues across the nation who have kind of dealt with this level of destruction, disaster, and how does that inform you?
So I've been in touch with my colleagues from the Paradise Fire up in Butte County and Santa Rosa in Sonoma County. Had an opportunity to speak with some folks from Hawaii. But the scale of the fire damage here is just almost impossible to comprehend. But we are doing everything that we can do to respond as quickly, as compassionately, and as efficiently as possible. One of the challenges I have from my office is, when you think of all the things that are involved in fire relief, property taxes and assessment administration is far from top of mind. Mm-hmm. But for those people who've been impacted, pulling your life back together is almost like a job. There's thousands of different things that you need to do. There's some things you don't even know that you need to do that will have a big impact. My department is one of those. And so I'm doing the best I can do to anticipate what the needs are, to push out information as broadly as I can to try to help people avoid those pitfalls that come with.
Well, I want to get into some of those things because there's some key things that people need to know, right? Land is of issue. Folks have been in their homes in Altadena, and again, as I was telling District Attorney Hochman, we're not comparing Palisades to Altadena, right? But we are focused on Altadena, right?
Sure.
That's Altadena Rising. We're focused on a black community, right? And the same question it was my burning question today is, black folks don't trust your office, right? You may be a great person, and this isn't a projection on you, but systemically and historically, black folks have been burned, right? So it's why do we trust you now, right? People are stealing properties. There's this thought that this fire, man, I know you can't answer this. You don't know this, right? But it may have been started intentionally. But what are the things that people need to know? What's your office doing?
So I'm working really hard to earn people's trust, to demonstrate that we are aware of what their concerns are, and that we're responding as quickly as possible. A couple things. One, if your property was damaged, you need to file the misfortune calamity form, which will provide you property tax relief while your property is damaged or destroyed. If your property wasn't destroyed, its value may have been impacted by the fire, so we're going to be applying something called a decline in value. That's what happens when the market value of your home falls below your assessed value. One of the most important things for the folks in Altadena that I wanted to emphasize today, though, is a condition that just really came to our attention over the course of the last 12 months. I hired some data analysts, and we did a study of homeownership in LA County. We looked at Latino and Black neighborhoods. One thing that really was revealing was that in Black neighborhoods, the number of people who have a 1975 base year for taxes, which is the oldest base year you can have under Prop 13, was double the rate that it is in the rest of the county. So as we looked at that a little bit deeper, what seems to be the case is that there's much more of a sense of homeownership from a generational or communal sense. So maybe it was the property belonged to grandma and grandpa, then mom and dad, and then to you. But what we think is happening is as folks inherit property, they're not legally changing the records. They're not coming down.
Why is that? Because we hear stories about people who aren't on the titles or not changing. What does that mean? Like, I'm just in the house. It's been grandmama's house for forever, and now it's my house. What does that mean?
Well, if your name is not on the deed, it's not your house, and you're not. And as a result, you don't qualify for property tax relief. You don't qualify for the other programs that are available to homeowners, such as transferring your tax base if you decide you want to pack up and move someplace else. However, when I'm obligated to record current ownership, so when we learn that there's a change in ownership, we have to record that. And that's when the clock starts ticking. Under the law, we'll send you a notice of assessment, and you have 6 months to fix your ownership records by coming in and demonstrating that you were the child of your late parents, and we could apply the property tax benefits retroactively. But in the case of a disaster like this, 6 months is not enough time with all the different things people are having to worry about. So I'm actually sponsoring legislation with Senator Sasha Perez, who represents Altadena, that will extend that period of time from 6 months to 3 years, which will really allow us to work with community groups, to work with government agencies, to reach all those folks, help them correct their ownership records to ensure that they get the property tax relief that they deserve, and to ensure that their records are accurate.
Let's go back to the relief part. We're coming up hard on the time. The relief part, what does that mean? And like the depreciation of the value. So if your house, what's relief first?
Here's what it means. So you have a Prop 13 base year. That's your tax rate. Your house burns down. When you rebuild it, it just means that we're going to restore that previous tax base. You're going to have a new house, but you're not going to be taxed on a new house. You're going to be taxed under what you were paying previously. So that's what the Misfortune and Calamity Property Tax Relief Program does for you.
So, like, let's just use a round number. $1 million house value, like the annual tax currently is about what? Is that based on
$1 million
lot or?
It's 1%. So it's if you got $1 million house, you're paying $10,000 a year in taxes.
Okay.
But remember, what the house is worth today is not the same thing as what you're assessed at. You're assessed basically at the rate that you purchased it. So if you bought your home 30 years ago for $250,000, and today it's worth $1 million, you're paying $2,500. And that's what you want. That's what the Misfortune and Calamity will do, is allow you to restore that low tax base even after you rebuild your home.
I'm hearing, and we got to get ready to move forward in just a second. But I'm hearing about people swooping in, trying to steal people's property. Like, what is your office doing to provide that protection?
So here's what I want everybody to do. If you own property, whether it's in the burn area or anywhere else, go to my website, assessor.lacounty.gov, and subscribe to the homeowner alert. This time, if anybody's trying to scam your property, such as through title fraud, you'll get an email notification within 48 hours. If you don't, you're going to get a letter in the mail from the registrar recorder 30 or 45 days later. In the event of title fraud, that may be too late. A lot of damage can take place during that period of time. So the homeowner alert is a really important program. It's free. It's a great service that'll let you know that somebody's trying to screw around with your property.
Are folks still required to pay taxes right now, even though their houses?
They will be required.
What about people whose house is still there? The value has gone down.
So you're still obligated to pay taxes on the land, although we're going to be lowering the land value as well. For those people that could still live in their property, but maybe it's in an area which was damaged and it's lost value, we will lower the assessment on that to reflect that reduction in value. It's called a decline in value.
what's the most important thing that someone should be doing right now if they've just now decided, you know what, I'm ready to deal with it? You talked about it being like a full-time job. What's the first step they should make?
They need to file the misfortune and calamity claim form or the decline in value claim form, and that will kick things off with our office that will have us engaged with you and your property.
You know, they say government moves two speeds, slow and slower, right? Like, what are you doing to streamline and kind of make this more efficient?
I will tell you that we have already reduced the value on almost all the properties that were in the burn area as of last Saturday, and we're going to be done by May 1st. And those folks who've already paid their taxes, they're going to be getting refunds. Yeah,
because to some people that sounds like, man, they trying to steal my land value or the property value. What is that not what's happening?
That is not what's happening. Your land value will reduce the value on it for tax purposes, and that will eventually restore as the neighborhood rebuilds. Your value will start to come back up again.
Give that website one more time in case people have questions.
Assessor, that's ASSESSOR.LAcounty.gov.
Assessor Jeffrey Prang, I appreciate you taking some time. Well, you didn't have a long commute, not like the district attorney, but you're in your neighborhood. You ever hang out over in the village, in the Burnt Park?
Sometimes. Like to come down for a cup of coffee or lunch.
Yeah, I'm going to go get some barbecue when we get out of here. My guest this morning has been Los Angeles Assessor Jeffrey Prang, and we wanted to share with you some tips and some things that you needed to know. And again, that website one more time.
Assessor.LAcounty.gov.
All right. That's Assessor Jeffrey Prang. When we come forward, got some updates for you. You're listening to the conversation live, Altadena Rising. We are sponsored in part by Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. Only on KBLA Talk 1580. We got your black.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
And welcome forward. You're listening to the conversation live, Altadena Rising, only on KBLA Talk 1580. And I'm James Farr, and this is the show of record, and we are chronicling for the nation the January Altadena Eaton Canyon fire, which has claimed 18 lives and has displaced thousands of more from the community. And folks are, they're settling, they're resettling, they're getting settled. Things just look a lot differently for people. Just want to give you some quick updates and housekeeping things. As I talked to you a little bit earlier today, if you are just now catching up with us, you're just waking up, you're just learning about this program that is going to make sure that these stories in Altadena are not forgotten. You can listen to all of our previous episodes via our podcast, and that's available wherever you get your podcast. You can also visit the KBLA YouTube page, 1580 YouTube page, where all of our episodes are available. And obviously you can download the app. That's a perfect way. We've been receiving communication from folks around the country. We even have folks on the continent listening, because people are really paying attention now to this. We are just a little over 100 days since this fire devastated this community, and the response to this program, I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate you guys letting me know some of the things that you'd like for us to talk about. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about in the coming weeks. I want to make sure that you're tracking this right along with us. We will have a perspective. We'll talk with some small business owners. Some of you may know Perry Bennett, the owner of Perry's Joint in Pasadena, Altadena. He actually has a store in the Burbank airport as well. Then also I'm looking forward to having a conversation with Captain Addington Stewart, who is a retired firefighter and former president of the International Black Firefighters Association. I want to take y'all inside of the fire. Right. I know there's been a lot of talk about what the fire department did, what they didn't do, and a lot of us have perspectives on ideas of what they should have been doing. I want us to really get into understanding the science of fire. I know there's been conversation about the hydrants running out of water and water resources. Brother Stewart will help us understand that. I trust him. He runs 2 fires, or he used to run 2 fires, but that's not what he does anymore. And then we also want to talk with some renters. Folks, I'm hearing stories from people who, they may have been staying with someone and didn't have a lease, right? And so when they go to apply for the resources like through FEMA and there's no documentation, it creates a challenge for them to actually qualify for relief. And we're looking at folks who have reverse mortgages and some of the challenges that they're facing, right? There's such a myriad of things that people are still facing as they continue forward. I don't want to say reassembling their lives. Some of them are just kind of figuring out what life looks like. And then we have stories of joy. I can't wait to give you an update on Dr. Eshell Williams and some of the good news that she's had. As you know, she's no stranger to our program. She's been a participant in our town hall this week. Her entire family, they lost a total of 7 homes, but she has some good news, and I want to share that. And as we get further into June, we're going to talk about the arts, the culture. There's so many cool things about Altadena that we want to share with you. I have often remarked that if Wakanda was a real place, that Altadena would certainly be one of those communities, one of those tribes, and they'd probably be the most loving, the most fighting, the most giving. But we're going to continue with these stories as we continue to be the show of record, and we are chronicling for the nation the roots, the resilience, the relief, the recovery, the rebuilding, and ultimately the reunion. When we come forward, you know how we do it on us as we get towards the end of this clock. We got to have a Saturday slap for you. Going to let this music have that message for me. Only on KBLA Talk 1580, unapologetically progressive.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
And welcome forward. You're listening to The Conversation Live, Altadena Rising. I'm your host, James Farr, and we are sponsored in part by Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. This is the show of record, and we are chronicling for the nation. That time of the show where we get to our Saturday slap. It's that time when we allow the message to be in our music. So while we, us, and them, the electeds, are figuring this all out, Brother Gil Scott Heron reminds us of this.
A rat done bit my sister Nell with Whitey on the moon. Her face and arms began to swell, and Whitey's on the moon. I can't pay no doctor bills, but Whitey's on the moon. 10 years from now, I'll be paying still while Whitey's on the moon. You know, the man just upped my rent last night, cause Whitey's on the moon. No hot water, no toilets, no lights, but Whitey's on the moon. I wonder why he's upping me, cause Whitey's on the moon? Well, I was already giving him $50 a week, and now Whitey's on the moon. Taxes taking my whole damn check. The junkies make me a nervous wreck. The price of food is going up. And as if all that crap wasn't enough, a rat done bit my sister Nell with Whitey on the moon. Her face and arms began to swell, and Whitey's on the moon. Was all that money I made last year for Whitey on the moon? How come I ain't got no money here? Whitey's on the moon. You know, I just about had my fill of Whitey on the moon. I think I'll send these doctor bills. Air mail special.
KBLA Talk 1580. Coming up next, Angela Roddick, Right with the Legal Lens. Only on KBLA. We got your back.